you know,
Yep,
just get in there and
definitely.
start talking.
I think we're live. Um, I'm not actually sure. Does it say? Oh, it says we're live.
We're
All
live.
right. Yep. All right. Hey guys, I think we are live. Before we get going, I want to make a brief statement on what I'm doing with this channel and how it relates to the events happening in the world right now. We all know what happened yesterday. I don't need to say it. I'm not here to make any sort of statement about it because I am not a political commentator. I am a games commentator. And I personally think that nobody should care what I have to say about it because I'm not qualified to give any sort of statement on such things. And I don't think it's my place to preach to you about political violence being bad, even though I think it is. And I think most of us agree on that. And I like to think that most of my audience has functioning brains and the ability to look at situations and decide for yourself what you think. And I want this channel to be a place where we can discuss games. And I'm sure this isn't the last major event that will happen while I'm running this channel. But I would like to ask you to keep the chat on topic, on games and not politics tonight, because we're not here to talk about that. Anyway, I've got T-shirted historian with me today. You know him from This Week in Geek. I've been on his show dozens of times. And
Indeed.
I think we've never had a Harmony and T-shirt stream. So he helped me get my YouTube start, and for that I am very grateful. So T-shirt, please, do you want to introduce yourself? Who are you, and what do you do?
Well, hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. It's your T-shirted historian. And
Oh, you're
welcome to the
so
show. Yeah, I'm the T-shirted historian, and my show is The Week in Geek, and that's what we do. We talk about all facets of geekdom and hobbies. You know, we talk movies, we talk TV shows, we talk toys. That's kind of a new thing. Ironcaster, I blame you for that. We talk miniatures, we talk paints, and yes, we talk TTRPGs. We talk a lot of TTRPGs. We've had a lot of guests who are involved in the TTRPG space. Several members of our panel are either TTRPG creators, writers, or people who are just active players. And, you know, having been involved with it for, God, I don't know. Is it 11 or 12 years now? I lost count. I can't say that it's not an insignificant part of my own life. You know, ever since I picked up my first D&D book, which was Tom Moldvay's BX Red book. You know, I was pretty much sucked right on into the gaming world, and I've grown and changed and developed and played a lot of different games, a lot of different systems. Used to work at a gaming and hobby store for nigh on something like 20-something years, and so I've been around the block with games, and I've watched the industry change over the years. I watched the rise of the vampire craze. You know, I lived through the Satanic Panic. I saw Pathfinder dominate the space when 4th edition cratered. I watched 5th edition come back, and now I don't know what's happening with it.
Yeah, I see you. I see you playing. You have a game that meets like every single Sunday, and it seems like you guys are always playing a different system. Do I read that right? Because every time I see your stream on Sunday, it's like you're playing something completely different. Do you guys have a continuous campaign going, or are you just like dipping your toes into a bunch of different systems?
Okay, well, what happens is Grim has got a big giant stack of TTRPGs, as do many of us. And he is committed to trying to at least play every single one of his games once. So he does try to run a different game every week, every other weekend. Although lately we have kind of had a little mini campaign, which came to an end today, of Modifius's Fallout role-playing game. I myself, I run longer campaigns. I kind of started it as a way to give Grim an opportunity to play because he's the eternal GM, and kind of to minimize some of the stress on him of having to keep up with a new system every single week. So I started off with the Scarlet Heroes, which is actually one of my favorite systems to run. I've done Cities Without Number. I'm doing Zombicide Chronicles right now. I did a little bit of Godbound. So we've kind of touched on a lot of stuff. Oh, I did Darwin's World, but I was using Other Dust as the basis for it. So I'm kind of really big into Kevin Crawford's games. I really like them the best, I think.
You made me learn Worlds Without Numbers. Do you know what you did?
What did I do?
Oh, it's great. Okay. So the first time I was ever going to go, yeah, sorry. I just saw chat. They're commenting on my lights. That's very important. But the first time I was ever going to go on any stream, basically, it was your stream, and I was really nervous because I'd never been on one of these before. But you invited me on, and I was like, okay, what should I know beforehand? And you said, learn to play Worlds Without Numbers. So I was like, okay. So I read the entire thing and I learned it. And I'm like, all right, I think I got this. I got this system. I was ready for a pop quiz on it. And you know what you did? You never mentioned it. You just didn't mention it on that first stream.
I know. I'm such a bastard. I'm sorry.
So, no, it's okay. I actually really liked the system. I thought it was kind of neat. It had a couple unique mechanics. But I have to know, what do you like about Kevin Crawford's system so much? What separates them? What makes them your go-to?
Well, as you know, I am not a fan of 5th edition. I got pretty burnt on it. I played several different campaigns of 5th edition with different people, and every single time the experience was not enjoyable. And here's the thing to know, and I'm going to say this, pretty straightforward. It doesn't matter what system you're running. It doesn't matter if it's Traveler, if it's 5th edition, if it's AD&D, if it's Scarlet Heroes, if it's Shadowrun, if it's Vampire. It doesn't matter what the system is. If you have somebody who knows the system very well and can make it enjoyable for you, you're going to have a good time no matter what the system is. You may not like the mechanics all that much, but you'll have a good time at the games, and that will color your perceptions of how enjoyable the game is overall. If you have a bad GM who doesn't know the system very well, and you don't like the system to begin with, or you're uncomfortable with it, you're probably not going to have fun with it, no matter how good the system is.
That pretty much rings true with me. I've had a really great time with some systems that I've never really read much good online about. I don't want to say what the systems are because I don't want to be like, yeah, I hear this system sucks. But I've had a really good time with them, but it's because I had a great GM. But then I don't think it really matters how good a system is if your GM doesn't really know it. How do you learn a new system so quickly? Because it seems like you're running different stuff all the time. But
well, the thing is, a lot of what I do is OSR based games. And the thing is, all the OSR is kind of compatible with each other. If you know one OSR system pretty well, then learning another one isn't too difficult. They usually have their little, changes here and there, their modifiers to the rules, and things and tweaks that make them better or worse than others. But once you learn one, it's not too hard to pick up another one. It's kind of like driving a different car.
Yeah. I've read a couple of them. I've never run an OSR game, which is odd. I've read Shadow Dark, and I've read, I think, something else, but I can't remember what it was. And I hate to ask you this because I know you have a lot of friends in the OSR space, but I always ask people to pick favorites. So, do you have a favorite OSR system, or do you just go to a bunch of different ones? You got to pick one.
I got to pick one?
Yeah, you got to pick one. It's very important.
I'm honestly this is going to sound unusual because Worlds Without Number, the Without Number series is my favorite, but
Is that OSR though?
it is more or less.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, okay.
it uses
Well, I got
the
another
6
one then.
stats.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. To be honest, I'm gonna look very naive here, but I don't know what defines that. Is it just the 6 stats that defines an OSR system? Because I'm not actually sure what the defining characteristic is.
Well, that's the thing. For me, I think what defines an OSR game is it using the 6 stats? Is it using hit points? Is it using, armor class? Are the spells more or less kind of recognizable? I guess the best way to figure out if it's an OSR game is if you picked up a copy of the rule book of whatever game it is you're playing, and then you can grab an old TSR module and play it with it without too many changes and too much difficulty, you're probably playing an OSR game. And I mean, I'll give you a great example. The first time I decided to try Axe, I noticed how similar it was to BX. And I love BX because that's what I learned on. So in order to test it out, I happened to have a copy of the original B4, The Lost City, which is, that's like, one of the super duper dungeons of all time. Everybody loves that one. So I grabbed my copy of B4 off the shelf, and I said, okay, guys, we're going to build characters for Axe, and we're going to use the Axe rules because it's got the skill systems and everything in it. But we're going to play B4 because, they had never actually played it before. And we successfully managed to play Axe with using the B4 module, and it went pretty smoothly. I didn't have to make any big adjustments. Hit points were pretty similar. Rolling mechanics, we used the Axe rolling mechanics because it's still using armor class, and the weapon damages are comparable. So there wasn't really any problems at all.
Okay. Because I know OSR is basically a lot of there's a lot of like retro clones in there, like Lamentations of the Flame Princess, that are very close to the old BX, but I wasn't 100% sure what the defining characteristic is. And I want to kind of look at a couple comments in the chat about this because a lot of people have interesting things to say here. Like Great Gold Worm points out it has to be a D20. I think Worlds Without Numbers is 2D10, I believe, right?
No, it's a D20.
No, it's a D20? Well, I thought it was a 2D10.
No.
Okay.
Now it does.
Yeah.
It does use 2die6 or 2die8 for the skills.
Okay. I'm getting it mixed up with another one then now. Yeah, and I guess I'm wrong on that. But okay. And so it's basically they're basically retro clones. Is there a difference between OSR and retro clones? Because I haven't ever been clear about that. I think those are 2 words for the same thing, right? Or is retro clone like just a reprint? Whereas I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay, well, like a retro clone is basically like, Labyrinth Lord is a retro clone because basically they took all the AD&D rules and they just basically reskinned it, and it's the exact same system. You could if you had a copy of Labyrinth Lord, you could go sit down with a bunch of AD&D first edition players like Dungeon Delver, and you wouldn't have too many difficulties playing it. Osric is a retro clone. Basic Fantasy is a retro clone. OSE is a retro clone.
Okay.
And these are not bad systems. They're all really great systems. It's basically it's the same old game that you knew from back in the day, but you're not paying the ridiculous eBay scalper prices for the original books in order to get all the information.
Okay. See, I've always used those terms interchangeably. And I've played some OSR stuff and I've read through OSE. And so I wasn't 100% sure what was what there. So I'm glad see, this is partially for me to learn this stuff too. Now, you said you were tired of 5e, right?
Mm-hmm.
You haven't played you've played a lot of 5e and you're done with it?
Well, I'm not going to say I played a lot of 5e, but I definitely played my fair share of games with my fair share of groups. and I honestly didn't enjoy any of it. Now, whether that was because of the people who were running it or the people playing it, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe it was a combination of that, but I wasn't really all that crazy about the system either. I mean, it's a serviceable system, but to me, it's kind of like I kept playing 5e and thinking, wow, this is a little bit like 3e, but they dumbed it down.
Okay.
So,
So I think that's actually the selling point of it a bit is it's like three but streamlined. But what made you decide to try something new or to get away from it? What was the point that you're like, all right, we're going to OSR?
um,
Or did it have to
honestly,
do with like,
well,
okay, go
no,
on.
honestly, it was word of mouth more than anything else.
Okay.
Um, I would listen to what a lot of other people on Twitter were saying about good games, and I'd start listening to their advice and kind of following them and looking at the stuff that they did. And once you start, going down the rabbit hole of all the different games and all the different systems, eventually you start finding things that you really enjoy. And that is kind of what led me to Crawford's games. And honestly, I got to say that if I was going to recommend any of Crawford's games to a brand new player who never touched a game at all, I'd say go Scarlet Heroes. Because
Scarlet Heroes.
yeah, because it's like OD&D. It's like the oldest form of D&D. It's very balanced. It has some unique mechanics that make it very heroic. It is suitable for solo play. In fact, it's very well geared for solo play, or it's fine for group play. It has an extremely unique setting. I've never seen any setting like this in any fantasy role-playing game ever, because it's very heavily influenced by Indonesia, Malaysia, Southeast Asian mythology and lore. And just a cool setting. I mean, I love it. I ran it for the longest time on my channel, and I think everybody really enjoyed the experience. Is it the be-all, end-all of games? Is it the only one you'll ever buy and you never need another one? No, of course not. I mean, every game does something different, and there's always a reason. The best reason, I think, to buy different game systems is to find out what every other game system does well and crib from it. And as you start cribbing from all the different games, you build your perfect game around it.
Okay.
Like a recent example I'll give you is the Avarice book that we took a look at on my show. I saw the trophy system in that, and I absolutely adored that. And I said, okay, I'm stealing this.
Now, just for people in the chat, what was that book? Because I remember it, but
Oh my gosh.
it was I
Let's
think
see.
it was by Chubby Funster, right?
Yeah, it's Chubby Funster, who
Yeah.
will be on the channel at some point.
Wow.
Ambition and Avarice, second
Oh,
edition.
okay. All right. Because yeah, that had a pretty cool trophy system in it. I liked when we were going through it. But man, I feel like every week when I am on your show, you bring like another book and you're like, all right, we got a new game. And the thing is, I think the criticism in people who do that is, well, you buy so many games and do you ever play them? But I mean, you can answer that because I see you play them every single Sunday. So,
Well, we try.
oh yeah. No, I see you're always playing something different. No, seriously. It's actually intimidating for someone like me because I'm thinking, oh, how do you learn all the rules to all these different systems and keep them straight? Because I know what I can and can't do. And I can guarantee you that if I learned the rules for a bunch of different systems, which I know for a handful, but if I did as many as you did, I'd be getting all the rules mixed up. But it sounds like you just take kind of piecemeal and put them together anyway at some points. But I don't know. It sounds like a lot to me just because I tend to get things mixed up a lot. And Do you have any like recent favorites that you guys have been playing, or have you always just been going back to Worlds Without Numbers?
Any recent favorites?
Yeah, any recent favorites?
Golly. Well, let me see. Out of the stuff that we've played recently, I kind of like Zombicide Chronicles. I like the way it handles a lot of things. It is not an OSR game whatsoever. It absolutely is its own beast. But I like the way it handles some of the mechanics. I'm gonna be 51 next year or next month, and I gotta be honest. It does get kind of tiresome to keep up with a lot of rules. I think 3rd edition all the way to Pathfinder 1st edition really put me through the ringers as far as the rules on games go, because the rule systems between 3.0, 3.5, and Pathfinder 1st edition were so rigorous.
Yep.
And after you learn all that, it's kind of like, and keep it straight. All the other games, by comparison, seem much easier. But the thing I've discovered is the more rules that you have for a game, the more that the rules encompass every facet of everything that happens in a game, the less player freedom you actually get.
Really?
Yeah.
You think that?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely think that.
Okay.
Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Scarlet Heroes doesn't have a whole bunch of rules. It's pretty simple. So, like, let's say you, Harmony Ginger, are playing a fighter, and you want to do something like, there's a bad guy on the other side on a balcony that's opposite of yours, and this is the example I always use. So you want to run over, leap up onto the banister, and leap off the banister, grab the chandelier that's in the middle of the room, swing from it, and land on the other side and attack the guy on the other side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In Scarlet Heroes, I'd just probably take a look at it and just say, okay, well, roll me a dex check. You could make it. I think you could make it in one round, and we'll just call that your move and your attack. Simple, right? Nothing to it. 3.0 or 3.5 or Pathfinder, it becomes a case of, well, let's see, you've got 30 feet of movement. Now, if you take more than a 5-foot step, then you can't do a full round attack action. So you're going to cut your movement. So first you're going to have to make your movement. Let's see. It's only 5 feet to the banister. However, you're ascending 5 feet, so that's going to cost you 15 feet of movement, and then you have to make a jump check. And that's all you have time to do in this 1 6-second round.
Okay.
See how the rules have stopped you from being able to do what you wanted.
So I'm going to push back on you a little bit here, because you've said something that I'm not sure I agree with, and I kind of want to push back on this.
Sure.
So I'm a believer in the concept of affordance, which doesn't necessarily mean more rules are better, but it does mean that if a game system has rules that cover a situation, then the players can read the rules ahead of time and have a good idea of how that situation will function when they get there. And so they can plan to be able to do what they want in that situation, right? You can basically read the rules, you know exactly how everything functions, you can plan, and you can do what you want within the concept of the rules then, right? That's called affordance. Basically, things work the way you expect. But with fewer rules, a lot of times it seems like you're playing more of a Mother May I game with the DM, and you're saying, okay, this isn't covered by the rules, so can I do this? And a lot of times you'll have a DM who is amicable to that, and they'll say, yeah, sure, you can just roll this or something. But sometimes you don't, and you're not really sure, and you can't necessarily plan for a situation if you don't know how it functions in the rules. Does that make sense?
I can understand it. I don't necessarily agree with it, just because it becomes a case of, if you already know in the rules that you're limited to not being able to do it, then you're being disabused of the notion of even being able to try it.
And I mean, I think that, yeah, but the rules might also say that you can do it. It's not necessarily just one way there. But I think this kind of goes into actually what I think a bigger split is from people who used to play 5e and have gone to other games since then. I feel like there is a huge split in what people have done who have left 5e, and it seems like half of them have gone to older versions of D&D, and half of them have gone to like just completely different games like you have, it seems. Is there a reason, and maybe you have done this, but I'm just curious, is there a reason that you jumped to things like Worlds Without Numbers? Did you go back and play the earlier versions of the game? Because currently I've been learning a little bit of AD&D, and I'm going to be in an AD&D game starting up soon, run by the Dungeon Delver, and I'm very, very excited about it. And he's been he's run a game already with me, and it's been a lot of fun. And I was just curious, did you ever go back and try the old versions before you jumped to other games, or was your first instinct to jump to other games?
Well, it was kind of a case of we started out with BX, and then we then I moved over to AD&D. Okay. And then I moved over to AD&D 2nd edition. And then I moved over to AD&D 3rd edition, and then 3.5, and then Pathfinder first. So it's kind of like I've been through all the old iterations before, right, and there was nothing wrong with them. They all had their strengths and they all had their weaknesses. None of them were ever perfect, but they were all good for what they were at the time. Honestly, I'm always kind of sad that RuneQuest did not get more of a following, because as far as a really good system, that one is probably one of the better ones. The hit points kind of stay the same level. It's not a leveling system for one thing. But your hit points always kind of stay same all the way through, so there's no hit point bloat. It has a very robust hit location table. It has a better way to account for what stats actually mean. And it has a skill system that's more intuitive because it's based on, percentages, which, in order to get better at a skill, you actually have to use it and be successful at it in RuneQuest. So,
I'm gonna be honest with you. When I asked that question, I forgot about the generational divide. I forgot that not everybody is a millennial who wasn't allowed to play RPGs until they were out of the house. So, so certainly your answer is, well, you played them when you were growing up, and yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, and the thing is, being in a hobby store, you are exposed to lots and lots of different systems. In fact, our store eventually got around to doing something called game nights that we would have every couple of weeks, where we would spend a weekend and people would just bring in games and play them. And I got exposed to all kinds of stuff. In fact, my favorite role-playing game of all time is Torg, and that's one that nobody's probably ever heard of. But
I'm not going to lie and tell you I have.
Yeah.
What is it?
Torg is a system where you role-play a storm knight, somebody who has the ability to change reality based on their desires. And the thing is, they have lots of different realms. So there's like a fantasy realm, there's a cyberpunk realm, there's a ninja realm, there's a horror realm, all this different stuff. There's even a realm of giant lizard men who can wield Gatling guns and stuff. It's pretty gonzo, it sounds like, but it makes more sense when you read it, and it's fun. But
no, go on. I was just agreeing.
Yeah, but system wise, the only dice you need is a D20. Everything is pretty well built up off the D20 with a scaling system for what the D20 means when you roll it. It has cards that everybody keeps, and the cards can be played by any other player at the table at any time, even when it's not your turn. And what the cards are cool for is, one, you can use them to alter the flow of the story at any time, or you can use them to help somebody else out with a role or a task if they're having difficulty. And why I like that particular system is because the players whose turn it isn't are still engaged at the table because they're listening to what everybody else is doing on their turn, because they're looking for their opportunity to be able to play their card and help out their friends. So everybody stays engaged. Everybody's actively part of the story at all times. Everybody is literally changing the story as it goes, depending on what cards they play. And the flow of combat is changing every single round, because every single round, the GM is pulling a card out, and the card tells you what actions are getting bonuses that round and what the disposition of the bad guys are every single round. So in one round, the actions that could have favor might be talking. So here you are, it's like all of a sudden you get a favorable talk action. That could be the round that your character, who is pretty decent at talking, will decide this is the moment where you need to bolster your allies because he's getting a bonus from the game by, bolstering all of his allies and giving them bonuses that round, instead of taking a shot at the bad guy.
I've never actually heard of that. That actually sounds very board gamey. It reminds me of the board game Gloomhaven, the way you describe it, except for the round by round bonuses. I've never heard of that, and I'm actually very interested now. I think the one I've played that had the weirdest mechanics to it, I'm sure somebody is going to tell me the name of this game, but I remember I played an RPG once where instead of rolling dice, it was like a horror RPG. It had a Jenga tower. What was that game? Does anybody know this? I don't remember what it was, but we'd like take out bricks from a Jenga tower, and when it fell over, disastrous things happened. But I could not tell you what the name of the RPG was. I'm sure somebody in chat's got it, right, guys? No? All right, well, Dread. It was Dread. That was it. That was on the tip of my tongue. I wanted to say it, but I was like, no, that's definitely a video game. All right, everyone in chat says it's Dread, so that was probably Dread that I played.
The funny thing is, I have always found horror role-playing games to be the roughest.
Yeah, they're hard to run.
Uh-huh.
I am of the opinion, and I know Sandy Peterson has famously disagreed with me on this, but I think it's a personal thing. I don't think all horror role-playing games are bad or anything. I just can't run them. I'm terrible at running them, and I'm terrible at playing them because I can't maintain the mood. I can't. I will be the one that laughs. I'll crack a joke because whenever I get a little bit uncomfortable, that's my go-to coping mechanism, is cracking jokes. And I don't do well with horror RPGs. And I love horror movies. I love horror video games. I love horror books. I can't do a horror RPG. I want beer and pretzels for my RPG. Well, yeah, not beer, I don't drink, but go ahead.
I understand. Yeah. But yeah, to me, horror is very hard to do because your players are already kind of disconnected from the game in one remove because they're playing characters. So they're not necessarily playing themselves. Well, they shouldn't be anyway. But the thing is, it's one thing for me to describe, a shambling, iridescent mass of bubbles that, comes crashing through the corridor, absorbing everything with its mouths, yammering, tekalili, and, that's, it sounds horrible, but unless you're really immersed in the game and you're totally buying into it, it's not really going to be that horrifying. And besides the fact that what scares one person doesn't necessarily scare another. So a lot of times these role-playing games end up having to use mechanical methods of role-playing, like sanity checks and fear checks and all this kind of stuff. And I always felt that was kind of a cop-out, because I'm kind of like, okay, so now you're you're basically taking agency away from me mechanically.
Yeah, it's mechanizing fear. Is that the right way to put it? I don't know.
Yes.
It's making fear into a mechanic instead of like an actual real life feeling. And I'm not a fan of sanity mechanics either, to be honest.
Hmm.
It doesn't do it for me. I've tried. I had the greatest DM I've ever had in my life try to run Call of Cthulhu for me, and I just never got into it. I played like several games of Call of Cthulhu, and yeah, I don't know. Um, and I think I'm not sure if my DM is just bad at running horror. He's great at running everything else, so I don't know. Or maybe I just need to find the right group for it. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I think horror is just really difficult to run. Of all types of games, horror is the hardest, I think.
Yeah.
I certainly
Um,
can't do it, and I wouldn't even try.
yeah, and see, that's one of the things. That's one of the new mechanics that seems to be popular now, especially with dice pool games. I played the Alien RPG a few years back when it first came out, and it uses a stress dice mechanic where the more stressed out you get, the more dice you get to add to your pool, but the more chances it'll mess you up are. Uh, First off, I got annoyed by that because it seemed like I was getting a stress dice for everything. It's like, oh, you trip over a corpse, you get a stress dice. Oh, you stub your toe, you get a stress dice. Oh, you saw some blood on a wall, you get a stress dice. Which to me was kind of like, this is ridiculous. uh, and then I saw Vampire the Masquerade, the new one, doing something similar with its hunger mechanic. Oh, now you have a hunger dice with everything. Oh, if you succeed with the hunger dice, yeah, you succeed, but you do it in a disastrous way and all this. I'm like, so, okay, so what used to make the old Vampire, the role-playing game, awesome was the fact that your character was a monster, and they had to do bad things to survive. And sometimes they lost control doing it and still did horrible things. But the point is, you were a monster, you knew it, you were doing bad things. It's personal horror. Whereas now, in the new Masquerade, since you have the hunger dice, if you accidentally, you're feeding on somebody and you accidentally blow it and your hunger dice goes off and you tear the guy in half or the girl in half or whatever while you're feeding, even though you didn't mean to, it's like, well, it's not my fault. My hunger dice went up. Instead of it being a choice. See?
Yeah, there's actually one thing Vampire's a little bit different for me. When I think horror, I think Call of Cthulhu. I don't think Vampire the Masquerade. But Vampire the Masquerade, and maybe just the World of Darkness games in general, I am not sure if I can say for all of them, have something I think that is actually truly terrifying to me. And that is the idea that your fellow players are also monsters and you can't trust them. And that kind of leads into like a pseudo maybe PvP situation. And that's always like when you can't trust your fellow players, when you're not playing as a group and you're not like all I don't know, a completely co-op game. That to me is scarier than like the DM sending vampires after me. I don't know. That always did it. Like sowing distrust between players.
Well, yeah,
To
there
me,
is that.
that's the best way to produce horror in RPGs, in my opinion.
And
But go ahead.
and yet the best game for that particular mechanic is Paranoia, and nobody would call that game horrific. Because in horrific,
Maybe
because
true.
in
What makes it good for that? I've never played it.
Paranoia,
Yeah.
in Paranoia, the computer is your friend, but everybody is out to get you, including your friends. And usually at the start of the game, the computer has different assignments for everybody, such as, like your assignment might be, watch out for Green 4. Green 4 is a traitor, or he's secretly a traitor. Whereas Green 4 might be told that Red 3 is a traitor. So the
Is
thing is,
is the GM the computer, or is there a GM in this game?
Yeah, there's a GM, but I mean
Okay.
the GM is the computer, but the computer
Okay,
is
that's what I was gonna say.
paranoid and crazy.
Gotcha.
And the
Oh.
deal
Oh,
is
that seems fun.
well, yeah, except for the fact that you're expected to die pretty often, so you have all these clone backups of your character. So it becomes a case of your character's going to die, so how many clones are you going to lose this session?
Okay.
And
That does
the
take away
game,
from the horror.
yeah, and the game is almost tongue in cheek funny because your character can die in so many ridiculous ways, including other people just straight up shooting you and killing you because you're a traitor.
Okay. I like
So
this, and I'm actually going to look it up after we get off here because that sounds like a lot of fun for a for one shots. I enjoy the concept a lot actually, but I kind of want to bring it back to other systems here since you have played I think more systems than anybody I have met on Twitter at least. Um, no, really, I've played maybe a dozen ish, give or take, but you're probably well beyond that. Um, do you, and yeah, I am going to kind of pivot here because I do want to know this is actually my number one question. What, like, do you have any advice for people who have been stuck in one game for a long time, maybe specifically the dragon game?
mhm.
Uh, where should they start? Like, what games would you pivot to from everyone's favorite dragon game?
Okay, if you're still wanting to scratch the fantasy itch and you want to go with something that is similar to the Dragon game, um, I would say try Worlds Without Numbers, just because it only has 3 classes. But what's genius about it is using those 3 classes, you can build so many different varieties of characters, and it kind of has like some templated type classes that you can get into. But basically, you can build any type of class that you are familiar with using its mechanics, and the skill systems make more sense, and the hit points aren't too bloated, and you can still feel a sense of heroism. And the setting is really quite expansive. It's pretty interesting. They just released a book for it, a setting book that, in the initial book that you get, you think the world is actually pretty big, and then you get like the atlas of the world, and it's kind of like you didn't realize how small your little chunk of world really was until you see what's in that new book. But all the races that you liked are more or less playable, and it's more fair and balanced in a way that makes sense. In other words, it's like, give you an example. So, Worlds Without Number uses a like a profession slash background system, and you get 2 of them at the beginning of the game. So, if you pick up, like, let's say, assassin, that can be one of your profession slash background type things. I forget the exact name. I don't have the book in front of me right now. But let's say you want to play an elf. That's going to cost you your second one. Because the default race in Worlds Without Number is human. So in order to play an elf, you have to give up one of your profession background things in order to do it. Which makes it more balanced because now you're actually having to pay for the demi-human status, whereas the other person who's playing a human can concentrate on being more skilled or having more abilities at their command based on their class, on what they choose for their professions.
I tend to like games that have like a smaller number of classes with a lot more variety to pick from other things as well. So, I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
does sound up my alley.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have read the book and I actually do want to play. I've never gotten a group together for that. Somebody in the chat, Ironhead Gaming, is mentioning Castles and Crusades. I had a lot of fun with Castles and Crusades. I enjoyed that one a lot when I ran a game. I actually found a game of Castles and Crusades because I some guy on Twitter was asking for players, and I responded to it and played with him for several months. It was a lot of fun. I played a bard. I'm sorry. I got off on a tangent.
I know.
Um,
It's okay.
yeah.
Castles and Crusades is really good. I actually love
Hmm.
Castles and Crusades a lot. And I have to thank Bruno Galan for getting me into Castles and Crusades. But and there again, that's another thing for you. It's like listen to other people on Twitter. They will share their knowledge with you. They will share their love for the games that they like with you, and they will lead you down different paths to games that you will eventually enjoy. Which is what I try to do on my YouTube channel, is just to show you different options, different things you can try. But yeah, I love Castles and Crusades. I love the Chenaults. I've had Steve on my show. I love talking to him. I love that he's an American-based company, that he buys American-based products. You know, like all his materials and stuff are sourced here in America. All his printing is done in-house. He's always giving out discounts, especially to veterans. He's a really good guy. They're a really good company. I don't know how they stay afloat because it seems like they're discounting stuff all the time. And they already sell their books at a very, very decent price for what you get.
Yeah, I first got into it because the player's handbook was free. And I've never seen Trollard Games do anything that I didn't like. Like every move they make, I'm like, yeah, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
I love those guys.
And and I'm going to keep saying this too. This is always going to be my main thing I'm going to say about Castle and Crusades. They have the best monk class of any game system that exists, and I will die on that hill. I will fight on that hill.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fight you on the monk class. I don't like monk classes. I don't see why they're not a like subset of fighter, but
Well,
that's okay, you know.
I mean, there is that, but I mean, it's like it's a monk class that has almost absolutely no dead levels in it whatsoever up until you get like past 15 or 16, I think. But
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, their mechanics are easy to get into if you already coming from a 5th edition game. There's just a few changes here and there, like you have to learn how to use the siege engine. But other than that, it's very similar to the game you know and the game you love. AD&D players can adapt to it pretty quickly. 5th edition players can adapt to it pretty quickly. You know, they don't necessarily consider themselves to be OSR, but I definitely consider them to be OSR. Because more than once I picked up their armory book and used the weapons out of it when I needed to grab something quick.
Okay. Yeah. I had a lot of fun with that system when I tried it. And we're getting to about the last 10 minutes, so I have to ask you something that you knew was coming. And I am going to ask you this because I am the absolute worst, and I have had a streak of asking people this awful question, and no one's called me out for it yet. So, all right. So the entire cast of This Week in Geek is in a burning building, and you can save one of us. Um, why is it me?
Why is it you?
Yeah. Why is it me?
Because out of all of us, one, you're one of the youngest.
No, wait.
Yeah, I think Ironcaster's a little bit younger than you, but you're one of the
Yeah,
youngest.
yes.
You have a really, really strong personality and a great charisma that draws people to you. And I see a lot of potential in what you do and what you are doing and how you're bringing people into the hobby. And so saving you would be an investment in the future because I know that you are going to be so much bigger than I am or Grim or anyone else who's on that show or makes anything for that show. Just I foresee it. And if it doesn't happen, then that will entirely be your own choosing.
Sir, I was setting you up to say, oh, I would save Ironcaster, or I would save Grim. Like I was setting you up for that. You were
Well,
supposed to actually justify that.
me and Grim are old. We're, we've lived our lives. If something happens to us, it's like, well, we ran our course. We did what we could. Ironcaster would be a loss because I know he's up and coming as well. And he's a good guy and definitely a really smart dude. He would be a loss, but I've never seen anybody, take off quite as fast as you. The only other person I ever saw hit their YouTube channel as fast as you is my other friend, Fat Steven Seagal. And he hit his he hit his 1K in less than a year, and I watched it happen in real time. But it's just like you started your YouTube channel in what, 4 months, 5 months? You hit 1K?
It was like, I think less actually, but
yeah. So there you go.
Thank you. I said that because I seriously, I thought you were gonna say, oh, I'd save Grim or Ironcaster. Oh gosh, I'm blushing. I can't get over that. Well, thank you. Thank you. I wasn't actually trying to fish for compliments there. No one's gonna believe that. It's all right. We all know I'm fairly shameless when I want to be. Right. So is there anything that I didn't ask about that you wanted to talk about, or is there anything in the chat that you want to address at this point? Because we've had a fairly active chat this whole time, and I haven't really been addressing that much of it, but I swear I'm reading it, guys, and I like you all.
Well, I'd like to get you on the channel more often, but I know you're busy, so that happens. I am glad that you are talking games and that you're sticking to games. I guess I would kind of like to see more of your adventures in other systems. Because, and I know you're just starting out, really, and you're just kind of trying to test the waters and get your feet wet. It would be cool if you could join us on Sundays for some new games, so you could actually jump in with both feet and see what it's like to try out some other stuff. Because we're pretty forgiving. It's like, when Grim runs, he hands out pre-gens, and he's very patient about explaining the rules as we go, because I forget the rules all the time. Part of my secret for learning new systems is always have a player who knows more than you do. So when you trip up on the rules, you've got a fallback that you can... And the main thing, the other part of it too, is just, if you do trip up on the rules, don't stop and obsess over whatever you messed up. Just keep rolling, keep having fun. If you messed up, read up on the rule for next time and then fix it. And, start of your next game session, just say, hey, I'm sorry we were getting this rule wrong before. This is how it's actually supposed to work. So when it comes up in the future, we'll know how to handle it. It's a bit like being on a stage performance. Just because you flub a line doesn't mean you stop to play and, walk off the stage.
Yeah, okay. I would love to make one of your Sunday games. It's Sunday's a hard day for me, so we'll have to see. If it was any other day, I could probably make it work. Sunday's tough though. I have been told that you can sing, because I'm pretty sure that's what this says on screen. I think Crimson Jester just said you could sing. Is that
shine bright like a diamond, shine bright like a diamond, shine bright like a diamond.
Get this man a record deal.
Fine light in a beautiful sea, you and I. No, never mind. Forgot the lyrics.
I question why you picked that song of all things, but wonderful.
Dude, I'm a huge fan of Steam Powered Giraffe.
I don't even know them.
You don't know Steam Powered? Okay, we have to educate you. Okay. This is what I love about you. You're such a sponge. I can just throw so many cool things at you. Yeah.
Basically, I like, yeah.
And speaking of that, I understand that you recently had a donation of some really, really good books.
Yes.
How is that coming along? How's your reading?
Pretty good. I recently just finished The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Now,
It was good.
now it should come as a surprise to no one that I'm actually really, really terribly read in the classics. I'm not kidding. I most of my time was spent reading comic books. So I'm actually
Really?
probably not as well read as you are. But the stuff that I did read, that is Appendix N. First off, I actually did listen to the Appendix N whenever it was in the AD&D book, and tried to pick up books based on that. That's how I discovered Fritz Lieber. That is how I always loved Robert E. Howard, but I did get into reading him very late. I actually read the Conan comic books more than the original books until later on, and now I'm catching up pretty good. Of course, I've read Lovecraft. I have. I like Harry Harrison. I've read Isaac Asimov. Actually, it's kind of funny. I was reading Isaac Asimov back in 4th grade. My teachers thought I was weird.
Yeah,
And
I was never. Oh, go ahead.
we all grew up. This is how big of nerds we were. We would sit around at our lunch table and we would swap back and forth Piers Anthony books.
Yeah, I used to read a lot of Piers Anthony. I'm not really a huge fan of him though.
I'm
When
not
I went back and
now.
read him as an adult, I'm like, man, this isn't good. Um,
Yeah,
but
I agree.
I I did enjoy Asimov
Hmm.
back in the day. I haven't read Jack Vance. Everyone is telling me to read Jack Vance. I'm responding
Main.
to a comment in chat here. Oops, not that one. But I haven't read Jack Vance, and like everyone says I should. And I have like a to read list that's like a mile long that I'm slowly working through. My next one that I'm reading is The Broken Sword by Paul Anderson. And so I'm kind of going through some Appendix M books right now, but I haven't hit Jack Vance yet.
Same.
So
And
it's
everybody keeps telling me he's the guy to get, so he's
yep.
on my list. Oh, and I almost forgot. In 4th grade, my teacher did the coolest thing. Nobody else read it, but it was sitting in her book turn thingy. You could, if you got finished with your work early, you could get up and go pick up a book and go read it, right? Well, she had Weird of the White Wolf from Michael Moorcock, and that started me on my Elric stuff. And in fact, I liked the book so much, I asked her one day, I said, can I buy this one from you? So she let me buy it from her, and that was how I got started reading Moorcock, which is kind of funny because Moorcock is kind of like Conan in reverse.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read him either.
Oh
I'm
yeah, it's good stuff.
slowly expanding my library of knowledge here. Um, but yeah, it's a slow process, but I'm trying to be better read right now. Um,
Same.
I didn't realize. Wonderful. Right. So before we end the stream, is there anything else you would like to address? Gosh, we have all sorts of chat messages here about this. Somebody actually, I said this and now I'm going to do that. I'm the worst. But somebody actually brought up my favorite band of all time, and I'm not actually sure why, but I think Crimson Jester and I have the same music tastes.
Particle man
Yeah.
does whatever a particle can.
Whew. I enjoy the amount that you've been singing on this stream. That's wonderful.
I'm really surprised you're not a big fan of Primus.
I don't know them.
What?
I no, I don't. Is
Oh,
that weird?
okay. You just need to start listening to Primus because it was
Apparently.
big in the '90s.
So no, you don't
Yeah, look
understand. I'm the
look at
kind of
Mounted
person that
Patrolman.
has. Oh no, what?
Mounted Patrolman. Everybody's like, what?
Oh no.
Everybody's freaking out because you don't know
Me.
Primus.
No. I see. I'm the kind of person that has vast amounts of knowledge on a tiny number of subjects and then doesn't know anything about anything else.
Look at this, and people are getting like pork soda. Listen to pork soda. Someone's under music.
It's true though.
It's a-
I have very lacking knowledge.
Today in Florida, a woman and red-haired woman buried under landslide of old Primus CDs and Jack Vance books. Film at 11.
Do you want to hear a secret though? I might have told you this before. I've never seen Star Wars.
What?
I've never seen it.
You've never seen Star Wars?
None of them.
Not a single one? Well, that's okay. You don't have to. I mean, just watch, Star Wars: Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. There are no other films beyond that.
That's
Did you at least watch Conan the Barbarian?
One. Yes, but a long time ago.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay. How about Sword and the Sorcerer?
I think so.
Okay. See, there's a whole bunch.
That one mixed up with one.
There's a whole bunch of trash 80s films that you absolutely need to watch, like Hawk the Slayer, Sword and the Sorcerer, Deathstalker, The Barbarians. They're so much fun. They're stupid, but they're fun. You'll enjoy them. Dragon Slayer, yeah, that's another one.
I guess it was just when I was young, my brother was like obsessed with Star Wars, so I just never watched it. Because my brother was so into it, and I didn't want to be into what my brother was into, so I just never watched it.
I get that, because that's one of the things that stopped me from getting into a lot of other things, because everybody else was into it, and I'm like, I don't want to be like everybody else.
Yeah, and at this point, I mean, I'm incredibly nerdy about some things, and so everyone it's like a thing that people assume that I have any knowledge of, and I don't know anything about Star Wars. I've never seen a single Star Wars movie.
Okay. If we could get away with it, if YouTube would not copyright hit us, I would totally sit down and have watch parties, and I would mandatorily make sure that you attended them so we could watch some of these old classics like Legend and stuff.
At this point, it's like almost a point of pride. Like, how do you live this long and not see that? I don't know. But like, yeah, I never have. So, right. So now that I've revealed my darkest secret that I've never seen a Star Wars movie, is there anything that you would like to address, or any final thoughts you've got here before we end the stream?
I guess it really doesn't matter which game you end up staying with, because a lot of people, will tell you this is the only game you ever need, or there is no other game. And I appreciate people who are purists and diehards. Some of them are really good friends of mine, like Dungeon Delver, who never plays anything but AD&D. And that's fine. If you find your one game that you're happy with and you don't want to change it and you don't want to learn another system, and the system that you have does everything for you, then that's fine. Stick with it, enjoy it, have a good time with it. But for myself and for others, I always want to give new games a chance. There's a lot of great independent creators out there, a lot of indie gamers, a lot of indie game creators who are putting their own hearts and souls into their work. And I want to give them a chance, and I want to read their stuff, and I want to enjoy their stuff too. Because I, on a personal level, don't think there is a be-all, end-all game that just absolutely does every single thing that you want perfectly the way you want it. There's not a system that exists that can't be tweaked, can't be worked with, or can't be modified in some way to make it just that little bit better for yourself personally. So there you go.
All right. And with that, we will go ahead and end the stream. It was wonderful. This was a lot of fun for me. This was, I think, one of the first times. No, it's not the first time I've had a personal friend on here. But this was wonderful. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Yes, I have seen Ghostbusters. I will see you all later.
Take care, everybody.
Bye. It's doing that thing where it's loading and I don't know if we're still live or not.